Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gagnon Atelier. I'm your old pal, Tim Gagnon, and this is the Modern Masters Podcast. Well, everybody, I'm so glad that you could join us. Man, I have got a great show for you today. You are going to absolutely love our guest that we have today. He is a fabulous, fabulous artist. And my gosh, he's just going to blow your socks off. But before we do that, let's go ahead and let you know a little bit about a few of the things going on here at the Gagnon Atelier. You can check us out at our brand new website, thegagnonatelier.com. I would appreciate you going and checking that out and giving us some feedback on our website. We got a lot of things in the works that are going to be happening in 2021, and we're excited about that. So you can check that out. If you're interested in learning more about directly about our exhibit that we are currently in the works doing right now, you can check that out at the illuminatedmessiah.com. That's an entire website dedicated to the Illuminated Messiah art exhibit and Bible, where we are creating an actual illuminated manuscript Bible. It is one of a handful. And when I mean a handful, I mean less than a handful, probably like 3 or 4 ever illuminated Bible that has been created since the printing press was invented. So it's a big deal. And we're excited about that. And you can get involved if you'd like to donate to that project. You can do so right there at that website. So if you could do that, that would be great. And as always, guys, if you could like this broadcast, I would appreciate it if you could share this broadcast with your friends on Facebook. That would be great. And if you could go over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that when we do the Modern Master Podcast, you'll be notified that it is going live and you can watch it at whenever it comes on. And then also, guys, every single episode that we've ever done, over 45 episodes of the Modern Masters Podcast, where we interview today's top artists in the world, in their genre today. When we say Modern Masters Podcast, we're not playing. We're not talking about just any artist. We're talking about the top artists in their genres in the world today. These are the people we've been interviewing. God has really blessed us in that department. So check out those videos. Go to YouTube and type in Gagnon Atelier. I'm telling you, you're going to be blown away by some of the conversations. It's absolutely fantastic. But with that said, we've got another great artist to talk to you about right now today. And so without further ado, let's bring him on right now. Adam Clague, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Tim. I'm honored to be here.
We're gonna have a good time today. It's gonna be a great show, and I'm very excited for my viewers to get a look at your art and to learn a bit about you. Tell us a little bit real quick about your journey, about yourself. Where did you get your start in art? You know, where'd you go to school? How'd you start your career? What type of art you do? You know, all that. You know, just throw it all together into one quick little spiel for us.
Okay. I grew up in Royal Oak, Michigan, which is a little north of Detroit. And I always loved art. I loved drawing cartoons and comic book characters. So usually that was Batman, but all kinds of cartoons. I just loved drawing that kind of stuff. When I was 9, my grandfather asked me to draw a picture of my grandmother, and I did it in pencil, but that was really the first time that I actually tried to do something realistically. And it wasn't anything super great, but you could kind of tell that it was that it looked like her and stuff. And I was really happy about that as a kid, and it kind of, I guess, encouraged me to maybe do more realistic stuff. When I was 12, I set up a series of or a group of soda cans. And I had the big, huge set of Prismacolor colored pencils. And I just tried to set out to see how realistically can I render these things. This time it was in color. And I ended up winning an award at the state fair. And that was another point that was like really encouraging to me. Again, it wasn't that I did any kind of masterpiece, but for a 12-year-old, I guess it was okay. And it encouraged me to, kind of get more into this more realistic art. I had several classics that were illustrated by an artist named Greg Hildebrandt. I was pretty young when I had those, but I was very much drawn to his work, which is more realistic, and he definitely captures the effect of light, and that was very I would say influential to me as a young kid. So I picked up oils a little bit when I was about 13, and it was a still life. And, again, the still life turned out okay, not like a masterpiece or anything, but it was okay. But I really hated how messy the oil paints were. And so it really wasn't until college that I got introduced to oils more formally and really grew to love them. And now that's like my primary medium. So.
Nice. Now, yeah, we were talking earlier about that and how, oils can be intimidating. People freak out about oil paints. It's like,
yeah.
I always compare it to Photoshop. I teach Photoshop at my local college and have for my gosh, a very long time, over 15 years. And when you're teaching Photoshop, a lot of the students that come in to take the class are like, they'll say things like, oh, I had Photoshop on my computer for years, but every time I turn it on, I get so intimidated and I don't know what's what. It's asking me all these questions and I don't know the answer to these questions and I'm panicking and this and that. And so I just turn it off.
Yep.
And what it is they need a guide. They need somebody that knows what they're doing, that can just kind of talk them through it and say, okay, this is what this is. This is what this is. This is how you use this. This is how you use that. And then demonstrate a little bit on how to do it. And then, okay, now it's your turn. You try it. And oil painting is really the same way. You can't just, it's not like acrylic paint where you can just dive in and you know that it's paint and you can clean up with water and you can thin the paint with water and you can clean your brushes with water. It's easy. It's easy to understand. But oil paint's different. All those solvents and all the different things and all, the way it works and how it takes so long to dry, all those things, fat over lean, what the heck is that? People are just like, you go into panic mode, but if you have someone that can teach you, you fall in love with oils. Most artists that I know, once you get over the learning curve of the oils to where you can, use it pretty well, you fall in love with oils and you never want to paint with anything else for the most part. Acrylic is an amazing paint. It really is. It truly is. It is an incredible medium, but there's just something magical about oils. And also, I think that's also part of it too, is the mysticism and the wow factor of oil paints that people get. They get it in their head like, oh, that's an oil painting, Matter of fact, a lot of artists that do paintings in acrylics and oils, they charge more for oil paints.
Okay.
Which doesn't make any sense. But there's that. I know it's foolish, but a lot of artists that work in both will do that. They'll say, oh, if I'm going to do a portrait in acrylics, it's this much. If I do you an oil painting, it's going to be more. Which to me, it shouldn't be that way, because it's a disservice to acrylic artists. Because it makes it seem like they're a lesser level of artist.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do that. And it's the whole mystique behind oil paint.
Yeah, there's like a stigma or something attached to it.
Yeah. So with you with oils, what is it about oils that draws you in?
Originally it was probably the challenge of it, I would say. Maybe something similar where there was like kind of like the stigma attached to it, where like oils are, kind of put up there as like the ultimate or something, which may or may not be the case, because there's fantastic work created in all different media. At the school where we went to, they really tried to expose us to a lot of different media. So we did stuff in oil, we did stuff in acrylic, we did stuff in gouache. The first year was all monochromatic media. So we were doing, pencil, graphite, charcoal, Conte. They really tried to expose us to a lot of different stuff. So I guess I love oil. I fell in love with it because, it's workability, the ability to work wet into wet, whereas the acrylic paint is going to dry. I found it difficult to, when the acrylic paint would dry darker, that was just hard for me to get the right values. But yeah, I like the look of being able to do wet into wet. And I used to kind of freak out if the paint would dry, and then I'd have to go back and paint on top, because then it's not wet on wet anymore.
Right.
But really, anymore, I just embrace that, and it just gives me that much more texture in my paintings when I have both the wet in wet and the textured stuff on top. So for me, it's kind of the best of both worlds, I guess.
Nice. Well, let's look at some of your paintings, and so people can see your artwork. And I'm sure the conversation will just kind of flow, and we'll go in all kinds of directions. But one of the things that struck me the most about your artwork, and you came, my gosh, I was interviewing some of the great friends of the Gagnon Atelier, Anna Rose Bain and Emily Osen. They were like, "Oh, you got to talk to Adam. You got to talk to Adam. You'll love him. He'll be great. You guys will hit it off." So, based off of that recommendation, here you are. And when I saw your art, I was like, "Yep, they weren't kidding. They weren't kidding, man. This dude can paint, and sling a brush, my man." But
thank you.
What strikes me the most about your paintings is the way that you capture light, and the way the light interacts with your subjects. It has an almost ethereal look to it. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So this first painting just blows my mind. I love this painting to death for all kinds of reasons. Tell us about this young lady right here. Look at that. What a great painting. Dude, talk to me about it.
Thank you. This painting, I call it Jenna's Joy. And what happened was, my wife, who's also an artist, and we had work in a gallery in Hudson, Ohio. And one of the customers of that gallery, in fact, they had already purchased one of my pieces, and so they knew about me. Through that gallery, they commissioned me to do this painting of their daughter, Jenna. And it was a very difficult project because they asked me to capture this moment that their family had experienced, where Jenna had this incredible feeling of joy and an incredible look of joy on her face. And so, as an artist, I'm like, I'm not a magician. I can't like, how do I get joy into my painting? How do I convey this? And so I traveled there. I met the family and met Jenna, got to know them. I had Jenna actually run around and around their patio, and every time she would come around in the loop, I would have my camera ready and I would just be snapping away. And I actually, I think this was providential that this happened, because a lot of times I'll have to take multiple photos and put them together in order to create the best picture. This one, I think the face and the pose, I think, if I remember right, was all one photo. That's just very rare to get like a perfect photo like that. So I had that. I had the expression captured. And if I had told Jenna to just be like, okay, stand there and pose like you're running, it would have looked totally fake and false, because she would have just been posing. So that's why I actually had her run around and around, and every time she came around, I would just snap off a bunch of shots. And then also what I did was, I always try to work from life as much as I can, and so I had her not standing or running, but I had her sitting with the light kind of similar on her face. And I did a small painting study of her, and that allowed me to just capture the darks and lights, and the colors and the temperatures, so I could get that firsthand account of what that looked like, the stuff that the camera can't necessarily capture. And so I had both my color study that I painted and my photos that I used, both of those in order to get the final product. So, but anyway, the story behind it is that Jenna had a really difficult day with her mom, and she had been very bad and disobedient, and kind of like the typical kid, I guess. But she had not been she had not behaved well, and because of that, there were multiple consequences. In fact, her mother, if I remember right, was like listing out the consequences for each of her infractions.
Oh gosh, poor kid.
I think she was pretty overwhelmed, and at one point, the mom, she realized this is just too much for a little kid to bear, and so there was a moment where she told Jenna that she was forgiven, and by that point, Jenna was remorseful for what she had done. There was, she was not continuing in her previous behavior. And so she had come to a point where she felt sorry for what she had done, and she, wanted to make restitution. And so her mother said, "You're forgiven," and all of these things that were going to be your punishment, you will not have to do. And so because of this, of being forgiven, she was overjoyed and relieved that she didn't have to be punished.
What kid wouldn't be at that point, huh?
Right. And she ran out of the house with this beautiful expression on her face and ran and went to her playground. And so this was the story that they wanted me to capture. And like I was saying, when I got the commission, I'm like, I wasn't there. How do I capture joy and forgiveness in a painting? And I honestly, as a person of faith, I had to ask God for help to do that. I was just praying and asking him that I could communicate this feeling of joy in the painting. The family who commissioned this, they are Christians. I don't know if this was a moment when Jenna understood about faith in Jesus and trusted in Jesus necessarily, but it was a moment when she was learning this lesson of biblical forgiveness, where God looks at each of us and all of our sin, because the Bible says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." He looks on us at our sin, but if we've trusted in Jesus as our Savior, we're covered by the blood, and he doesn't see our sin anymore. He sees Jesus, who was perfect and lived a perfect life. And so we're forgiven, and the joy that comes from being forgiven and in knowing that we are one with God, and that there's no longer a wall between us and God, that he forgives us, that does bring great joy. And so there's a deeper meaning behind the actual story here. There's a spiritual meaning as well. And I have the story written out a lot better than probably what I've been able to communicate here. I have that on my blog. If you're interested, I can give you the link for that.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, we could put that in the description of the video. That would be fantastic for people to see that. I look at this painting and it just blesses my socks off. I just melts my heart to goo.
Cool.
I've got daughters, and there's just something about seeing that face running through the backyard, a happy little girl running through the yard playing. It's beautiful. It really is. And I love the way the light shines on her face and her arm, her pose running, and really think that your style, because this is such a, it's such a loose painting, your edge control is just beautiful. And it really captures motion when I see this. And that's one of the things I love about it the most is it looks like she's moving. It doesn't look static. If this would have been a hyper realistic style of a painting, I think it would have been more difficult to capture that motion of this little girl running. But with your softer brush strokes and the edges, you can feel the motion. and the light and just, yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. You nailed this one. You hit it out of the park.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a painting that you did that also shows your use of light and your use of just all of your techniques. It's a very loose painting, which that's one of the things I love the most about your style is it's got that ethereal looseness to it that is just beautiful.
Thank you.
Talk to us. I'm going to put up the painting. Tell us a little bit about it, and then take us to showing. Talk to us about, like, from the beginning, you get the idea of a painting, and take us through your process from that initial, oh, I got an idea for a painting, and then how you get to the finished painting.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Here's the painting, and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So this is a girl named Elizabeth that used to go to our church. Before I did this one, I did another painting of my cousin. And my cousin was a little bit younger than this girl at the time. But when I painted my cousin, it was a painting that was all in white. So different varieties of white. And that was something I wanted to experiment with that particular painting. And she's eating a bowl of ice cream. But then I was like, maybe I can build on that concept and introduce color. And so that's why I did this one. I still have a lot of different varieties of white in the piece, but I wanted to bring in like a punch of color. So that's why I had this idea with the really colorful yarn that she could be knitting. And so as far as my process goes, I already said, I work from life as much as I can. And so I had, this girl's name is Elizabeth. I had her come over to our place, and I set up this scene and, planned it so that I knew that the light was going to be coming in through the window and giving me that nice dramatic backlighting on her hair. And so I set all that up. Of course, I took a bunch of photos, but I also did a study that I actually painted, like a small little sketch that I did in oil. And so that way I could have the values and the colors that I was seeing firsthand, and along with the photos, both of those things could inform the final painting. So that's how I started. Before that point, I guess it would have been after that. I did a little pencil drawing, and I was trying to get a little bit more specific with my composition. And so I was kind of fooling around with moving items here and there, trying to get a nice feel to the composition. And at some point, I just kind of let loose and did this big like swoop with my pencil. And that turned out to be the line of that yarn that you see going up from the bottom, and then kind of over to the right and to the left, and then back up to her hands and her face. So that was sort of that. I mean, I had already had the initial spark of inspiration with my concept, bringing this color into a backlit scene with these different whites. But then I got a little bit more specific with this little sketch, to plan exactly how I was going to have the eye flow through the piece. And then after I had that down, I think for this particular one, I didn't do any other studies other than that first one, and then I painted it. A lot of times I will do multiple studies before I dive into the actual painting. I have a painting in my attic that I haven't actually started the final version of the painting, but I have at least like 4 studies that are yay big, maybe between 8 by 10 and 11 by 14 of like studies. And it just gives me a chance to practice and to experiment with different placements and values and stuff before I dive into the actual painting. So I'll do that. I'll also go on Photoshop and move things around, and I can adjust and manipulate darks and lights and so forth very easily and quickly in Photoshop. And so by the time I actually get to the final canvas, sometimes it's like a big white canvas in front of me that can be really intimidating. If you've had that experience, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, but all the same, when I do the planning ahead of time, it gives me so much more confidence that it's going to turn out okay, even though I might be intimidated in the beginning, because I have a really good, clear mental picture of what I want it to look like by that point.
Yeah,
And even the even when I'm doing like a little still life, like that backlit grapefruit, I had my initial inspiration of that backlit segment of grapefruit. So I knew that that was going to be like the feature item, but then I spent like, I don't know, multiple hours moving around the grapefruit peels in order to get the eye flow and to direct the eye to the main, the center of interest of that backlit segment. So even with something simple like that, I'll spend quite a bit of time beforehand planning it. And especially with a bigger, like more involved composition, I'll spend quite a bit of time planning. And that's one of the things that, like, when you talk to a non-artist, they assume that it's really easy, that you just jump right in and start slapping the paint around and you get a beautiful picture. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. At least for me, I spend a lot of time planning beforehand.
right. And it shows. It shows. Having a composition of this magnitude can be, there's a lot going on here, and not just with the lighting, but with the composition, the way you've got the yarn spread out in this, like, this pattern, this looping pattern, and it draws your eye to her hands and her eyes and everything like that. That's something that takes a lot of planning, and
Yeah.
it doesn't just come to people. No one can just paint this just from their imagination and going. You have to really, well, you could, but it wouldn't look this well, and it wouldn't be done this properly. And that's really one of the most beautiful things about it is people see art, they see the end result. They don't see the journey and the hair pulling and the stress and the time and the models and the getting the lighting just right. They don't see all of that. They just see the final painting. And so that's part of the magic of art. We don't, sometimes a lot of artists will show, like, what's on your canvas posts on their social media, or they'll put, work in progress shots. And there's a lot of collectors that have told me that they don't want to see that. They don't want to see it. They're like, don't show me that. Just show me the end paintings. I just want to see the end paintings. And that always surprised me, that and when I talk about collect, I mean like serious art collectors.
Yeah.
That they're not interested in the work in progress stuff. They want to see just the finished paintings, because
That's
they don't
very
want
interesting.
the magic, which is interesting, and then there's, then you get into the whole debate, where there are people that they'll transfer the image completely onto the canvas before they'll paint it. Then there are others that will just paint, from life, and they'll go for it, and then there's that debate in the art world and things like that. Is it cheating if you transfer the image?
Yeah.
Draw it in, and you can get in a World War III fight for that. And
Yep.
I got thrown into one of those once or five times, and it's pretty amazing that fight how that can be. But yeah, a lot of collectors, they want the magic. They want the magic of the finished painting, and it's a beautiful thing. Now let's talk about, there's another painting here that you have that struck me, that you sent. I really want to show this. This one is just a portrait head and shoulder shot. At first glance, you go, oh, it's just a head and shoulder shot, but there's so much more to this. Tell us about this painting, and talk to us a little bit about, how you do this painting, where you did this painting, the story behind it. And I think that we're going to get some great conversation from this one. Here it is right here. Look at that. My goodness. Again, the way the light is striking his face, and his face turning away from the light. It's just beautiful. Talk to us a little bit about it.
Thank you. This is a guy named Jason. He was the model at a weekly live painting session that I used to attend before COVID. There's a local gallery. It's the Kathy Klein Art Gallery, not too far from where we live. And she used to do weekly sessions. And so Jason was the model there that night. And I think what he's wearing is like a Kung Fu uniform, if I'm not mistaken, but it had that red and black. It was really cool. And so yeah, this was the product of that. I remember some of my goals. You mentioned the light. I did want to have the direct light source. I can't remember if that was something I suggested or if that was as is, the way that it was set up. But yeah, I do look for that Another thing was I was trying to do get like really good value control and use as few values as possible in order to show the form, so that I could get that really hopefully tangible feeling of the form. So I remember that was one of my main goals for this one. And as far as the looseness goes, I like to try to, as much as possible, try to do each thing or each shape with just one stroke, and then if I can, just leave it. Usually that it doesn't work out that way, and you have to modify the shape a little bit. But for this one, I remember I did want to try to preserve my my brush strokes as much as I could.
Nice. Yeah, it definitely has that beautiful painterly quality. So this was basically a study, a practice in a group sitting.
Yeah.
And so that's beautiful. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's something that I definitely want to talk to you about is when we're doing when you're practicing and stuff. Talk to us about the importance of getting into a group of like-minded individuals, your painting group, and getting in there and working with other artists on a regular basis. Like you said, this is a weekly thing. Obviously with COVID, it's probably either stopped or you do it Zoom meeting or you do other ways. But talk to us about how that has benefited you as an artist, just being around other artists on a regular basis and working with them.
Yeah, I think it's really important. In the past, I haven't realized how important it was. I don't know why exactly, but just I think I would fall into the mentality of thinking, I can do it on my own, and I don't need, but I really do. I mean, I've come to realize that my art friends, the people who are like-minded and understand the art, they're so important to have around you and to encourage you. So my wife Andrea, who's also an artist, like she and I are the main supporters for each other, with encouraging each other, and that's really awesome. But even if your spouse is not an artist, definitely I recommend to anyone, any artist, if you can, try to find a group of artists. They'll encourage you, and the more you get to know them and the more you get comfortable with them, they'll give you an honest critique of your work, which is also really helpful. One of the first things that my wife and I did before we moved here to Kansas City was we tried to look for a painting group to see if there was some kind of art community that we could plug into. And we found the Missouri Valley Impressionist Society. And we saw online that they were meeting for a paint out. And so I just emailed one of the founders. His name is Brent Sievers, or it may have been Greg Summers. They're both founders. I can't remember which one I contacted. And I just asked, hey, can we come out and paint with you guys? And they were like, yeah, sure. And we weren't even members of the group at that point or anything. We became members later. But that was just really awesome. That was the start of some really great friendships. And also it's so helpful because moving to a new place, connecting with other artists, they can kind of let you know about some of the different artistic opportunities that are out there that we wouldn't have known about otherwise. So it's important. Yeah.
That's pretty great. So you had mentioned that, you're a person of faith. You talked about, church, you talked about different things. As an artist and a person of faith also, I find that quite often it's like I separate, there's like my art friends and my art world, and then there's my church friends, my church world, and they very rarely do they overlap.
Yeah.
At all, even a little bit. And through this broadcast, I can say that I've met a lot of artists that are Christians and people of faith, and that share my faith and my art passion. But in my art world, I have so many friends that are not people of faith or people of other faiths. And that friendship is very deep, and it's a very strong bond, and it's our mutual passion for art, and it's our mutual, just our like-mindedness, and the Bible talks about iron sharpens iron, and so a friend makes a friend better. And when you're around people that have the same passions as you, you rub against each other and you make each other sharper and better. And, it's like one of my mottos in life is, if I'm the most skilled artist in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I want to be the least skilled artist in the room. That's the room I'm looking for all the time. That's the room I want to be in, where I go in there and I go, I stink. I got to step up my game. And then you're around people that are here in their skill level, and you're here, they can get, because they know how to get there.
Yeah.
And I want to be around people like that artistically, but also when I'm at church, I want to be around people like that. But I've noticed, at least in my world, that those don't usually interact very often, and it's very rare for me to find, at least for me on the local level, artists that are also people of faith. And it's very, very rare for me to find people in the church that get me because I'm an artist. What has been your experience in any of that? And how do you navigate those shores when you're dealing with your church friends that don't get the artists and the art world, and your art friends that may not get the faith world? How do you navigate those shores as an artist who is also a person of faith? How do you navigate those shores in your life?
Okay. I think Andrew and I have experienced both. There was a time, especially a few years ago, where we were just going to all of the different events. Like if we could go to an event, like we would try to get there if it was an Oil Painters of America thing or whatever. You meet all kinds of different people that come from all different faith backgrounds and so forth. But the commonality, of course, is the art. And so you can still click with those people. And yeah, I totally get, surround yourself with great artists so that you can learn from them and everything like that. And then at church, sometimes it's like, I don't think we have, there were some artists at church actually, but they were not trying to like make a living at it necessarily, And so the majority of people, I think at church, the commonality there is the faith. So it's like the spiritual side of things. And a lot of times when you tell them you're an artist, it's just really unusual for them to hear about somebody who makes a living doing art, until finally, they'll follow you on Facebook. And then after they follow you for a while and you're posting paintings and workshops that you're teaching, and then they're like, oh, okay, they get used to the idea of, okay, he paints and he teaches for a living.
Right, you're the church artist, because they're so rare in the church,
And like the artist tends to be like the graphic designer and the person who's laying out the bulletin and all of these other things, even if that's not necessarily your niche, which is fine. That's cool. However we can use our artistic abilities is really good.
Right.
But then I also feel very, very grateful that we do have a small group of friends that we connect on both levels. It's the art and the faith together. And some of our closest friends are the ones that we went to school with. And did I mention where I went to school, or maybe that was before?
I know you did. And you went to Pensacola Christian College, which when I think, Pensacola, I wouldn't have thought that there was had I known that Pensacola Christian College had such an incredible art program, I would have absolutely gone there, because it's right down the road. It's only 3 hours away. I would have moved to Pensacola, because I knowing where you live, I could never live that far away from salt water, because I dry out. I would die.
Yep.
I would die. I need salt water. I need the Gulf of Mexico, because I would just die. And but Pensacola, I could take Pensacola.
Sure. Yeah. Lots of water.
Yeah, lots of water. It's not as pretty as Panama City Beach, but it's close.
Hey, yeah.
There you go. But so you went to Pensacola Christian College. So you were saying?
I did, yeah. And the art program was very regimented. We always called it boot camp for artists, basically. And just going through that experience with the other artists in our class, like really cemented some strong friendships that we still have to this day. And so I'm very grateful. And being a Christian college, naturally it's going to attract people of like faith. And so that's what we do have, is a small group of friends that are, well, we connect on both the artistic level and the faith. So
Right.
I'm very grateful for that. That really helps. It's a big encouragement.
Awesome. Well, let's go to another one of your paintings. This painting in particular really blesses my socks off when I saw it. And it's in some ways, it's unlike the paintings that you've shown already, but yet it's very similar in regards to light. And when I see this painting, it reminds me of the scripture that says, God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. And it's a still life that you did. And so I'm going to show this painting, and then I'm going to talk just a little bit about how when I mean God is light, what I mean by that. And here's the painting. Oh, I'm telling you, Adam, this painting, I just love it to death. Just love it, love it, love it, love it.
Thank you.
And what I'm looking at in particular when I talk about God is light is the way that the light is passing through that center slice of the grapefruit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the thickness of the meat of the fruit, and that it's translucent, and the light is coming through it. And it reminds me of all the beach paintings that we have around here. A lot of, obviously being where I'm located, there's a lot of ocean paintings and a lot of beach paintings and a lot of things like that. And so on a lot of the beach paintings, you'll see a wave and the light coming through the wave.
Yeah.
And this is very, very similar to that. And it just strikes me the way that, like I said, it almost looks like there's like an LED light inside the fruit, that it's almost glowing, and you can see light emanating from it, but it's not, it's the light passing through it. And when I see this, that's the scripture that immediately comes to my head.
Wow.
And it's just,
wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Absolutely. Tell us about this painting. And the biggest question is did you eat it after you painted it?
Yeah, I'm sure I did. I don't like to waste. So
there you go. Waste not, want not. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you very much. I can't think of a higher honor or compliment than that my painting would remind somebody of God, and specifically even a specific scripture passage. So I think that's awesome. This painting, the inspiration, I think, started just when I was in our kitchen and I had a grapefruit, and I was noticing the light from the north window, and it was just really creating some beautiful colors and color harmonies on the grapefruit. So I think at that point I wasn't even seeing the grapefruit backlit and glowing like that. I think it was just that. So I knew I wanted to paint a red grapefruit. And then when I went to actually set it up and plan my composition, I spend a lot of time planning my compositions. So even with a small still life like this one, I spend a lot of time moving things around and trying to get things just right. And as soon as I, angled the grapefruit segment in such a way that the light was coming through it like that, and it was glowing, I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is my painting. This is what I'm going to do. And so that grapefruit slice became my center of interest. And then from there, I was just rearranging all of the pieces of peel in order to make the eye flow and direct back to the grapefruit slice. So that was kind of my process for setting up this piece. But yeah, I was really inspired by just the beauty of the light. That was awesome. That's what I wanted to capture.
Nice. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And isn't that as an artist, it's a good thing your wife's an artist, because my wife would be like, what the heck are you doing? I'd be all like moving them around and taking the peel and putting it here, making it all. She'd be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm getting ready to look at this. Can't you see this beautiful painting? And she'd be looking at me like, I'm crazy, but that's, she's got used to it now after a couple of years with me, but that's how we are. We see something, we got to line it up. One of my favorite paintings when I was getting my master's degree, I went to the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, and there was a painting I did of French onion soup. So I
Oh,
painted the painting, and then I ate the French onion soup, and it was a beautiful thing. It was a
nice.
beautiful thing, you know. That's how it is. But for artists, I think, I've mentioned this before, is that artists are ambassadors of beauty.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is that artists see the world differently. They've actually done scans of artists' brains while they're creating art.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, and there, you can go online and look this up. And the parts of the brain that lights up when creative people are creating they're very specific parts of the brain, and the brain lights up very differently than other people's brains do.
Oh, interesting.
Very
Okay.
interesting. They basically they have absolutely proven that artists' brains work differently. And God, when God made you an artist, He made you different. He gives artists the ability to see His creation in an absolutely unique way. And it's that we can see beauty in the mundane. And we capture that beauty, and we can make the mundane extraordinary by looking at the light. I was talking to my students literally this morning, and we were talking about that. And I held up it was a clear bottle of hand sanitizer. Because, it was at college. I had a mask on. I had this. We had hand sanitizer all over the college. They've installed sanitizing things all over the. She can't walk anywhere without like 15 masks on. That's how it is now. So I held up the bottle and I said, "What do you see?" And they were like, "Hand sanitizer." So what do you see? Hand sanitizer. What do you? None of them said what I was looking for. They all said it's a hand sanitizer. I said, "You know what I see?" And I held up. I held like this Gatorade bottle. I held it up, and I said, "What do I see? Look at the light and the way the light goes through the bottle and the water droplets bouncing on it. And look at the bottom, all the little refractions and reflections." And I said, "That's what I'm looking at when I see that. I don't see a bottle of hand sanitizer. I'm like, look at the way the light's just bouncing all over this thing." And so then I paint that, and then you see it, and it's suddenly beautiful. And it touches people. Art touches people in a very magical, special, glory, I would say divine way. And that, and I think that's it. And then by being like I said, an ambassador of beauty, we recognize God's beauty of His creation, and then we can demonstrate that in a very unique way that touches people. And I think that's the beauty of it. So
that's like our main goal, Andrea and me as artists, is even though we're not painting portraits of Jesus, we're just painting the things that we find in God's creation, whether they're people or still lifes or landscapes, but regardless of what we're painting, our goal is to try to capture that faithfully, even though we put our own creativity into that. But we're trying to capture things faithfully, and our ultimate goal would be that people would see the beauty in our paintings and realize that we didn't make this up. We're just trying to capture what's actually there in God's creation. And the reason it's there is because God values beauty, and because He is good and He wants to share these things with us. So we hope that our art will direct people upward and cause them to see His goodness and His beauty, Well, but I like that, ambassadors of beauty. That's great.
You can keep that.
All right, I will.
You can run with that. So, when I look at your artwork, I see it. It's obvious to me, and one of the things that as Christians, one of the goals of every Christian is to have that moment where somebody walks up to you and go, "There's something different about you. You're different." Whether it's the way you handled the situation, whether it's the way you reacted to something, the way you respond to another person, the way you are more, whatever. They notice the divine in you. And I believe that in art, all art, whether you are a believer or not, you always get a little piece of your soul. A little piece of you is in every painting. But then when you add the Holy Spirit into that, God works through people. And he works through his people to touch a lost and dying world. And he'll use anything, including your paintbrush. Of all the silly things, the Bible says that God uses the things that the world considers foolish and worthless and dumb and not important to shame the powerful, the wealthy, the rich, the people that think they're all that in a box of Popeye's chicken. I don't know if you got Popeye's chicken where you're from, but trust me, it's the greatest thing ever. But, it's like God could take a paintbrush and a painting of a grapefruit and touch someone's heart. He can take a painting of this beautiful young girl, and you've captured this moment that her parents were looking for. And I'm sure when they see that painting, if that was my baby girl, I'll tell you right now, I couldn't look at that without crying every time I'd look at it. You know what I mean? And if she was in trouble and I saw that painting, she would be out of trouble immediately, and I'd have to give her lots of money out of my wallet because that's what would happen, and I'd go broke. Or you see this painting here, and you see the man, and you look at his face, and it's like his personality is in there, and I feel like I can tell what he's like as a person. You've captured that. Or then the way the light is capturing this beautiful moment, your artwork speaks, and it speaks about you. It speaks about your faith. It speaks about God's word and his presence and his light and his life. It's all there. And that's one of the things that I was drawn most when I saw your artwork, that I knew I was going to love talking to you on the show. I want to say thank you for coming on. This has been just a wonderful conversation. I'm very thankful that you were able to come on the show.
Thank you.
Hopefully we will have you on again, because there's a ton of other things I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, I'd love that. This was fun. Again, it was an honor. I appreciate you asking me.
Oh, well, let's show your website one more time. And so it is adamclague.com. And you have another website as well, and that one is called, what is it called?
Well, if there's viewers who are artists themselves and they're interested in learning about art, I have an online video course, and the location for that is claguefineart.com. So CLAGUE fineart.com. And then my website doesn't have all the newest work, so if anyone's interested in, okay, yeah, if anyone's interested in seeing our newest work, just look us up on Facebook and Instagram as well. We're on there.
Awesome. So you do have Facebook, Instagram. There's lots of places they can contact you.
Yeah,
that's fantastic, guys. You definitely want to see the rest of his art, because it will just bless your socks off. It's absolutely fabulous stuff. And I just loved it. I fell in love with your art the minute I saw it. So
thank you.
It's
a
great thing. Well, Adam, thank you for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to say goodbye to you real quick. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience. Then I'll come back on and bring you back on, and you and I'll have a little chit chat at the end. All right?
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
Well, guys, what did I tell you? That was a great show. Oh my gosh, that was a great show. I mean, absolutely fabulous. Again, his website, adamclague.com. But if you are an actual artist and you want to learn about some stuff, go to claguefineart.com and check him out. As always, guys, remember you can find us at the GagnonAtelier.com. And if you want to learn more about our big exhibit that we're working on, our big project, the Illuminated Messiah Art Exhibit and Bible, where we're making an actual illuminated manuscript Bible, you can go to illuminatedmessiah.com and learn all about that. And as always, guys, if you get a chance, like the broadcast, share the broadcast, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We want to get a zillion subscribers. Help us reach our goals there, and that would be a blessing as well. So with that said, guys, as always, just remember what I always say. God loves you, and so does your old pal Tim. We'll talk to you next time.